Hey BookTube, I'm back for another video. In this video, I want to talk about a little bit of my reading for the rest of the year. So we are about halfway through the year, give or take, and I know that my reading is going to change drastically in the second half of the year, meaning I'm not going to get as much reading done. And that's just how the way life is going to be going as I go back to do more education and take on more responsibility than what I have now. So that means a lot of my reading time that I currently have now is going to evaporate pretty quickly. So that means I have about a few months left, or a month or two left, um, of a lot more reading time, more open space in my reading schedule. And so I wanted to fill that. And I'm thinking of next month, in July, fill that with a mammoth book, a chunkster. So here on BookTube, we all love our mammoths, though we don't always want to read them because they're so big. But for me personally, I love reading mammoth books. Usually the definition here on BookTube is 800 pages or more for a massive book or a mammoth book. Uh, I'm not going to go by that. I don't usually go by that. I just think of anything more than 500 pages counts as a mammoth book in my mind. Um, and personally, I love reading mammoths. And even though I'm a slow reader, considered considerably speaking, I'm just not a fast reader at all. But there's something about sinking yourself into a massive book and just getting into the rhythm of that book and just being completely enclosed in that world that I really do love. And it really does bring the best out of me in terms of reading. Where if I'm reading a bunch of short things at a time, it can, it's like a stop and start. You're always changing course. Um, and I love leaving room for mammoths where I'm just enclosing myself in a world instead. And it's also the main reason why I don't do reading goals. I never have a goal to read, say, 50 books in a year or anything like that, because I know that if I read a mammoth, it'll take me about a month to read, and I don't want to take away that pleasure. So I'm not going to restrict myself to any kind of reading limit, because I'm never going to reach it if I get the get on a whim decide to pick up a 1,000-page novel. So and I always want to leave that option open. I like to read a couple of mammoths every year. This year, I already did read one mammoth. I started off in January reading The Tale of Genji by Murasaki Shikabue, and it's humongous. It's not only just a massive paperback that's super thick. This volume here is 1,300 pages, but it's also um, oversized. So if I take this copy of, well, this copy is not the that copy is oversized in itself. Here, a normal Penguin Classic size. You can see it's ginormous. This is, and then to add that on top of the font size is quite small. So this was huge. It took me a month to read this, which is actually quite an accomplishment on my part because uh, it's taken me longer to read shorter mammoths than this. But I really fell into a rhythm with this book, and uh, even though I wasn't totally enamored with all 1,300 pages, it was still well worth the time, well worth the investment for me at least. And I do find myself a bit yearning a little bit for that world. And I could go back to it if I wanted to, but not in the terms of this video where um, this video here I want to be is going to be me seeking out a mammoth to read in the month of July. And I've been thinking about this, and I don't know which mammoth to choose. And there's many different directions I could go, but I'm narrowing it down to books I either have on my shelf here, or books or ebooks, certain ebooks that I have. But I only have one ebook as a consideration, and that's um, mostly because the books that I have physically, I've had longer than the ebooks on my e-readers, so it makes more sense if I want to read what I own to read a physical book. Some of these have been on a potential TBR for years even. But yeah, So I'm going to show you a collection here of mammoths, and just talk about what I want to read about them, or if how I'm going to decide which mammoth I choose, because I'm going to be for sure reading one of these books. I just don't know which one yet, and I want to voice some thoughts. Maybe if you there's a particular book that you really liked or you've heard good things about, you can try and convince me in the comments. But yeah, I'll start off with let's start off with the two more obvious ones. So ones that have been on my TBR, not on my TBR, this but on my pile. I've been sort of on the periphery of my vision of a mammoth that I would like to read, and this is James Clavell's Shogun, and this is a mass market version. It doesn't look that long, but this mass market version is yeah 1152 pages, and it goes all the way to the end too, which is kind of weird. I'm not used to a novel doing that. The novel just ends right here. There's no extra pages in the back. But yeah, this is just a massive historical novel about, or historical adventure novel about medieval, I think medieval Japan, about an English adventurer who is stranded, or his ship wrecks onto medieval Japan or something like that, and it's about this encounter with this foreign world and how this character kind of makes his way through this world, as you know, as a encountering it with a very different perspective from an English perspective, encountering this foreign world. So there is many more in this series. I only have the second one of Taipan, but I don't uh, really care to read the rest. The only reason why I have Taipan is because I found them both used at the exact same time in this same series design, except for Taipan is in a blue look instead of this red here. But yeah, this is James Clavell. This is a fairly popular novel among men at least, and I've heard a lot of great things. It's quite the page turner, and I would like to give it a try. But I don't know if I want an adventure novel though, and that's the thing. Do I want an adventure novel? Do I want something that'll be fast paced and that'll be keep me turning the pages quite quickly? Maybe I do, maybe I don't. I still haven't figured that out. And then this next book is in the same similar vein, but though it is a classic, it's a Penguin classic of The Count of Monte Cristo by Dumas, Alexander Dumas. This is the Robin Buss translation, which is the only modern translation there is available. All the other translations are from either adapted from or edited versions of public domain translations from like 100 years ago. And this is Robin Buss translating the whole thing afresh for Penguin Classics, which is quite a feat for a humongous novel. I think this is well past. Oh no, this is about 1,243 pages. Yes, 1,243 pages. It is bigger than the James Clavell novel, but this is the book that has been on the periphery of my TBR too. I've When I was in first started university, I did most of my pleasure reading during the summer months. I had like about 4 months off because for me it was so exhausting to keep up, um, trying to keep up reading, the novels I wanted to during the term while also reading required materials for classes. So I always like to pick at least two mammoths for the summer months, and this was one of them that I always wanted to pick, but I always migrated to other books instead. And I never got to this one during the summer months of my when I was in university. And since then, whenever I think of a mammoth I want to read, this one is always right there. It's always staring me in the face. I hear that it's also fast-paced, that it's quite the adventure story. I think it's a tale of revenge about a character who is sent and put in jail. It says, yeah, put in prison for a crime he did not commit, and then it's just this long, elaborated uh, revenge tale of him trying to uh, I don't know, seek revenge against the person who put him in jail or something. I don't actually entirely know. But most people who read this, even people who don't like reading classics or don't like reading long novels always say that this is a page turner and that this is one of their favorite books because it's so immersive. But I know there are some people whose opinions that I respect when it comes to books who actually don't like this, uh, and I guess who don't like the writing style or don't like the story. So I don't know what to think. I do want to give it a try myself. That's the only way really to know what I think about a book is to just give it a read myself. And this is fairly popular too. Like this is quite a popular classic. I don't know. It feels like I should. If I went based on duty, this would be the book I picked up because it's been staring me in the face for so long. It's the mammoth that's always sitting there, and all these other mammoths that I've collected around it are just um, books that I want to read and seem to push this one off the list. And it almost seems unfair. So maybe it's time for me to just hunker down and read this thing for once, instead of just having it sitting there on my TBR shelves and just haunting me for the rest of my life. Next is another mass market. This is a drastic change in pace. This is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Doral by Susanna Clarke. Another mass market edition here. This is her historical fantasy book taking place in, I think, Napoleonic England, and it's about two magicians, I believe, and then and I think they're rivals or something like that. It has to do with um, magic and how magic is transformed in this historical period. I don't know much more than that, really. I do know that this is a favorite of people whose opinions I do respect. It's well recommended. It's I don't know a famous fantasy book from I think this was when was this published? From the 21st century? Yeah, 2004. So, and there's even a little bit of an illustration there. I don't know if this thing has illustrations throughout. Yes, it does. I didn't know that. That's kind of neat. Can I find one? Yeah, some illustrations. This book clocks in at 1,006 pages in this edition. 1,006 pages. I've actually seen the full paperback of this in a used bookstore, or I think I've seen it at least twice. But I always put it aside because I kind of like this red squat mass market over the black um, glossy paperback. So this is it. It's fantasy. Do I want to dip into fantasy instead? I don't know if this is a fast-paced thriller. I don't think it is. But it is a highly regarded fantasy, and I do want to read some more fantasy. And I've been reading fantasy lately. I've read The King of Elfland's Daughter by Lord Dunsany, and I read The Last Unicorn and by Peter S. Beagle, and I also read the first four books in the Earthsea series by Ursula K. Le Guin. So I have been dabbling in fantasy this year, and I've been enjoying it a lot. So why not pick up another fantasy book and give this one a go? But the thing is, I still can't decide. And then the rest is just contemporary fiction. I don't know if literary fiction is the right word, um, but it's fiction. It's just general fiction. So this is Marx Helprin's Winter's Tale. I always want to call it The Winter's Tale, but that's the title of a Shakespeare play. This one doesn't have the. It's just Winter's Tale. And this, um, I think a UK trade paperback. Uh, at least it looks like it's a UK trade paperback. It's thicker than it looks. It's not a. I've seen editions that are thinner than this, but it is still over 700 pages. Yeah, 750 pages or just under 750 pages. So you can see it's a lighter mammoth, but it's still a mammoth in my mind. And this is a historical fiction tale of New York in the early 20th century, I believe. It was published in the 80s, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, yeah, 1983. So, and I'd like to give this one a try. I've not seen the movie. I'm not really interested in seeing the movie, but I've heard great things about this book. I think it's well written. I think it's I think it's like a love story too. It says that it's about um, Peter Lake attempts to rob a fortress-like mansion on the Upper West Side. Though he thinks it's empty, the daughter is at home, and I think they fall in love. It's the affair between a middle-aged Irish burglar and Beverly Penn, a young girl dying of consumption. So it's like a tragic love story in a historical period. So um, I've heard that it's well written and that it's a good story. So I want to give this one a try too. But do I want historical fiction, especially of this kind, of like early 20th century um, New York? So I don't know. Do I want to or do I not? Uh, Then we come to a bit of an oddity on this list. This is the newest member on this list of mammoths that I've been considering to read. Uh, it is Harold Broadkey's The Runaway Soul, and I actually hauled this, I think just this year, or earlier this year, or maybe late last year, I don't quite remember. It is in one of my haul videos from the past few months. And this was a book that I've been wanting to find, and I'm glad that I found it used for a good price. And it's a chunkster. This was published in the 90s, and we have our author there. And I think it's well over 800 pages. Yeah, 836 pages. No, 835 pages. Sorry, 835 pages, and what really pulls me to this, like, I never would have considered reading this if I hadn't sampled this book, where I read the first few pages, and I really liked the tone. I really enjoyed this. Look, it's got a little preface there, which called 1930, which is like a page and a half of preface before we actually get into the main novel. And the way he writes and the way he plays with language is very unconventional and very playful, but also quite interesting and insightful. And usually that can be hit or miss for me, um, but when it does hit, it really does hit, and it sticks with me. And I think this might be one of those books, and I hope it is. And I actually wasn't sure if that was just like a gimmick that he begins the novel with, and then the novel kind of takes a more conventional tone to it. And that could be the case, but I did sample, I think I did the page 212 tag, or whatever the tag is called, where you just pick that random page and read it. And it was the same style as the very beginning. So I think this would be a book that hits home for me a lot more than some of these others do, at least in terms of writing style, which is one of the main keys I look for in a book, is how well it's written. And one of the things that really pulls me into a book is its prose. And so maybe I should read the opening to this. I don't know if it would make a whole lot of sense, because it is pretty crazy. Yeah, let me read the first page and a half. Let's see, I hope that won't take too long. I was slapped and hurried along in the private applause of birth. I think I remember this. Well, I imagined it anyway. The blind boy's rose and milk and grey-walled and salty aquarium, the aquarium overthrown, and the uproar of the woman barn, the fantastic sloppiness of one's coming into existence, one's early education, one's senses in the radiant and raw stuff of howling sore and unexplained registry into the new everywhere, immensely unknown, disbelief and shakenness, the awful contamination of actual light. I think I remember the breath crouched in me and then leaping out yowlingly, this uncountable sort of beginning. The other birth, of a mind shaped like a person, all that skull and buzz and mumble, a mind starting up, a mind that wants so much to know the truth that it makes the effort and takes the shape of a boy, and comes into existence, only a first draft at first, sketchy, watercolored, cliched, cardboard air, a symbolic wrist, a painted eyebrow, a tattered half-real boy as proud as a mind, an apple-eater in an specific light, two different born creatures, one guy. Imagine the twists of suspense in being in two different autobiographical narratives at the same time. Think of all the myths of single meanings, of there being a single line in one's own history. And then to be born in two sharply divergent ways, as if I humor the hypotheosis of two births, if I admit I sense myself as consciousness, or a more or less consciously alphabetical gesticulating shadow, but real seeming, and real as real, but as only partly filled in, not to others but to myself, 2 days old, 2 years old, 5 years old, 14, 50, 60. Well, imagine a shadow consciousness imagining itself a sleeping 14-year-old boy, real in St. Louis country in the month of May. That would be 1944. A boy ill once, who in his delirium felt himself to be triply born, quadruply born, to be a son of illness, nutty with delirium, and near death, and a son of luck, and recovering to be a body and a mind, a difficultly born descendant of Adam, born once more, and then it just ends with ... And then that reference there to 1944 is where we begin the novel. So just this really weird opening about being born, but yet also growing up and maturing. And I did trip over some words there, but that's just my Canadian accent. Don't worry, that's how we pronounce words here. But yeah, I think that opening is fantastic, and it makes me curious about the rest of the book. But then, if I pick this book up, I feel like I'm almost betraying books like Alexander Dumas, who's been on my shelf for way longer than this book. Like, this book has probably been on my shelf for 5 years, and this book has been on my shelf for maybe 2 months. And it feels wrong to pass over this, to read this. Yet, I think I might enjoy this more than I would enjoy reading this. Though that's not to say that I wouldn't enjoy reading this, if that makes any sense. I don't know. But then I still have 3 more books to go. The next book here, this is the second last work of fiction. This is The Kindly Ones by Jonathan Littell, a rather battered hardcover version. This is the story of a Nazi, basically, from the perspective of a Nazi as he goes through all the Nazi apparatus during the time. It's from a first-person perspective, as if he's writing his own memoir to justify his actions. And it's, of course, it's going to be extremely gruesome, as you imagine. But it's also, I've heard mixed thoughts about this. Some people say it's brilliant, others say that it's vulgar, and that, like, who wants to be in the mind of a Nazi for this long? So how long is this book? This is 970 pages-ish? 75 pages. 975 pages. So who wants to be in the mind of a Nazi for 975 pages? Which is why this book was controversial when it was released in English, because this is translated from the French, I believe. But yeah, the reason why this one interests me is because I think it's Steve Donahue said that there's large sections of this book that are actually brilliant, and also the beginning of this also did intrigue me quite a lot. That plea, "Oh, my human brothers, let me tell you how it happened. I'm not your brother," you'll retort, "and I don't want to know." And it certainly is true that this is a bleak story, but an edifying one, a real morality play, I assure you. You might find it a bit long, a lot of things happened, after all, but perhaps you're not in too much of a hurry. With a little luck you'll have some time to spare, and also this concerns you. You'll see that this concerns you. Don't think I'm trying to convince you of anything. After all, your opinions are your own business. If after all these years I've made up my mind to write, it's to set the record straight for myself, not for you. For a long time we crawl on this earth like caterpillars, waiting for the splendid diaphanous butterfly we hear within ourselves. And then time passes, and the nymph stage never comes. We remain larvae. What do we do with such an appalling realization? Suicide, of course, is always an option, but to tell the truth, suicide doesn't tempt me much. Of course, I have thought about it over the years, and if I were to resort to it, here's how I would go about it. And it just continues on like that. Like, I don't know, that opening is seductive, but I I would consider this a horror novel. Like, and do I want to spend my July reading a horror novel? I don't know if I do. Um, but I do want to read this, and this is similar to The Count of Monte Cristo. This, ever since I bought this, it has been on the periphery of my vision of a mammoth book that might just fall in one day, where I would just pick it up on a whim and just fall into it. But when it comes to considering what my next mammoth read will it win out against the others? I'm not so sure, but it's definitely an option. And then I'm going to go to an ebook before I go to the last physical book that I have to show you. The ebook here is We the Drowned by Karsten Jensen. This is a novel. I think it was written in Dutch, and then translated into English. But this is a book that has very much intrigued me, not just because the cover is absolutely gorgeous. I wish I had a paperback of this, because the cover is one of the best covers for a book I've ever seen. And it's a story of a town, a coastal town to the sea, and it's about that town's relationship through the generations with the sea. And that's all I really know about it. Other than that, it's a weird work, and that it fascinates me because of its weirdness. And this book, I believe, in paperback is usually around 700 pages, give or take. My ebook is a little bit smaller because I can change the font, and then changing the font changes the page number. Yeah, it's still a mammoth, though this one would be considered a shorter mammoth, or at least a shorter chunkster, depending on whether or not you want to consider your mammoths over 800 pages, which this one is definitely not. But do I want to read this one? This one has also been on the periphery of books that I might just pick up and fall into on a whim. But I don't know if I want to read an ebook, though. I might, if I found this used as a physical copy, I would definitely pick it up, and maybe that would be more of an incentive to read it. For some reason, certain books just appeal to me more in physical copy than they do in an e-copy. And I think this one, I'd love to just handle that cover and the physical aspect of the book a little bit more than I usually would for other books. But that's just me. And that's it for fiction. I have one option for nonfiction. And to be honest, the one option for nonfiction actually really does pull on me. And this one might be the choice that I end up going with. This is On Politics by Alan Ryan. Just this massive book. It's another oversized book, as you can tell, and it's published by Liverite, and I just love that design just all around. It's beautiful, and the floppiness of it all. It's and the subtitle is A History of Political Thought from Herodotus to the Present. And Alan Ryan is one of the authors you would want to read when it comes to writing a history of political thought, because he's right in the thick of it, right in the weeds of political philosophy, and this is his book, 1,000 pages, 1,000-page introduction, really, to the subject. I think, yeah, let's see. It is 1,011 pages. 1,011 pages. This initially came out as a 2-volume hardcover, but I like having the 1-volume version more. Though I don't know if I found the 2-volume hardcover used, I might pick it up, but I doubt I would find something like that where I am. So this will do for now, and it's nice and floppy, and it's just him starting from the age of Herodotus, which is kind of interesting in its own right. Usually people are like from Plato to the present or something, but starting with Herodotus is usually not the normal course, which I think is kind of the point of the subtitle. Kind of starting with Herodotus is supposed to make you raise an eyebrow and cause a little bit of intrigue. I've heard this is well written. This did make one of Steve Donahue's lists, I think in 2014 when this came out, for best fiction of the year, meaning that, in 2012, sorry, 2012, and meaning that this that it's actually quite well written for a massive book like this, or a massive book on political philosophy of all topics. You'd think this would be incredibly dry, but I've heard that this is a good writer on that subject. So, and this one really does pull on me. I love overarching histories that start, say, from the beginning all the way to the present day. I love overarching histories like that, and this one is definitely in that vein. So that one is the one nonfiction pull for me, and it's a very strong pull. But then now talking about all these other books on camera makes me want to read them all. So I have a lot of decision making to go. I have a whole month to go before I finalize my decision, but we'll see. Let me know what you think of any of these books, or if you read any of them, or what you think, or if you are planning to read any more Mammoths, or what your relationship is to Mammoth books, and we'll see you next time, BookTube.